For fishing communities on Kenya's southern coast, felling mangrove trees to make boats has long been a part of their life, but traditional attitudes towards the mangrove are shifting as communities become aware of a new benefit from keeping the tree standing through cash payments for carbon storage. Local people who are protecting and replanting mangroves are now selling 3,000 tons of carbon credits a year to international buyers for about 500 to 600 shillings a ton. The money goes into financing more forest protection and reforestation and to community-chosen projects. Meet Lilian Muihaki, a PhD student and a lead research for mangrove restoration at the Kenya Maritime and Fisheries Research Institute, who tells me more about a mangrove restoration project along Ganzi Bay in Kwale that is preserving life at sea while improving living standards of residents of Makongeni and Ganzi villages.
Pamoja project is a small carbon offset project that is community-led. So the project is about forest conservation and getting benefits from that that go back into community development in the villages involved.
In 2011, residents of Makongeni and Ganzi villages, home to about 6,000 people, began working with the Kenya Forest Service and the Kenya Maritime and Fisheries Research Institute KEFRI to protect 117 hectares of mangrove forest, or about 20% of the mangrove forest in Ganzi Bay. Besides protecting the trees themselves, the efforts aim to improving local fisheries, as many species of fish breed and raise their young ones in the shoreline mangroves, and build resilience to worsening storm surges and coastal erosion, which can be slowed by mangroves. According to Lilian, mangrove forests can also help regulate coastal rainfall, ensuring adequate supplies of water.
The project is important because since its initiation here in the village, we have seen a change in the mangrove forest. So there has been an improvement because of the different project activities involved. So the community here have taken up to conserve this forest and to change how they were using the forest previously for better. So they are looking to improve the forest quality and make sure that the forest is healthy, and by this the forest is improving, and we are contributing to the international efforts to limit climate change. Secondly, it's improving on the biodiversity within the forest, because a good forest will always improve on the other living things that depend on the forest. And also the community has benefited a lot from this, because since it's now 5 years since the project started, and every year they get money from the carbon market by selling 3,000 tons of megatons of carbon from the project area. And with this money, they've been able to pump it into different community initiatives. They have pumped it into the education, where they've bought books for the schools. They have pumped it into water, bringing water close to the village. There are 2 villages involved within the Gazi Bay system. So Makongeni has been able to bring water close to the village, and the people who have had to go get the water, mostly women, have reduced the distance where they have to go fetch the water from. And here in Gazi, they've been able to distribute the water to the houses, so better water systems.
It has also been noted that mangrove forests are particularly efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide, one of the major drivers of climate change. Mangrove ecosystem can capture 5 times as much carbon as similar land ecosystems. In 2013, the Mikoko Pamoja Community Organization signed an agreement with the Kenya Forest Service to sell carbon credits from the project for 20 years and to plant 4,000 mangrove trees annually to replace those harvested legally or lost through illegal harvesting.
The project also involves restoration, where the community is directly involved in going to the forest to plant, and that way, and together also they have employed community scouts who go around the project area to make sure all is well, and so it has provided employment to the local communities. They've also been able to support the dispensary around by bringing equipment to the dispensary and many other activities. What happens is that every year the money comes, the two villages sit down, they have village barazas, and they decide on how they want to use the money that has come to help everyone in the community.
Working with the forest surveys and carefree staff, community members divide the mangrove forest into 10 meters by 10 meter plots, measured the sizes of the trees in each plot and calculated their rate of growth to come up with figures for their carbon storage capacity and to generate carbon credits.
So to assess the carbon, we go to the plots that have already been established for monitoring, called the monitoring plots within the project area, and we measure the diameter of the trees. And this diameter will be used in the allometric equations that we use to calculate how much carbon we have in the particular plot. Then that is going to be extrapolated, and we are able to tell that we have this much carbon in this area in terms of the living tree. There's also a lot of carbon in the soil. This we assess by taking a soil core with a corer. So we take this and we take samples to the lab, which we measure for the organic matter and therein the carbon in the soil of this forest. Other things that we measure to make sure that we are doing well is the biodiversity. We assess the biodiversity in these particular plots that we have, and they help us to assess the faunal community, how well it is doing. Yeah, and it's also a measure of how well the forest is doing.
Using that information, the community group has so far earned about 3 million shillings over 2 years selling carbon credits to international buyers who purchase them to offset their own emissions. The money has become a major motivation for people to become involved in mangrove conservation.
This is the first project of its kind in the world. So it has been a learning process for us to learn how to engage in the market, to engage in the carbon market, to learn how to standardize our measurements and the protocols that we use, and also to develop new ones where we feel that the ones that are there are not working very well for us. So it has been a good learning process. We wouldn't call it much of a challenge. Another challenge that we have faced is maybe in the restoration. Because of many factors in this system, it has been difficult to get some of the plantations going. So sometimes we plant and the expected success rate is not met. That has been a bit of a challenge. We also have some natural events which are maybe exaggerated by anthropogenic activities. So we may have a bit of deposition of the soil from other areas. Another challenge, but now we've worked to curb it, is illegal harvesting. So it is normal in such a project to have some people who are not maybe very aware of what's going on to come and harvest a tree or two. So what we've done with this is that we've established a watchtower around the natural plantation, and also we have 2 scouts from the community who have been employed to be watching the forest and to make sure that there's no illegal activity. Another thing that is happening is also marking the boundary, because we have different users of the forest, and this is permitted by KFS and according to the forest to the participatory forest management plan. We have different users. So for some users, the challenge would have been knowing where the boundary of the project area is. So we have been working to mark the boundary of the project area, so that anyone else who goes to use the forest for another thing knows that from this area is where the Mikoko Moja project is.